In our life group this morning, we were studying the difference between spiritual blindness and physical blindness. And it starts off where Jesus' disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, and that he was born blind? And then Jesus went on to talk about that. How far did they take physical disability? Were they ever forbidden from the sanctuary?
Yes. Well, certain disabilities. But let me get your question. The difference between, what word did I write? Physical blindness and...
Spiritual blindness is what Jesus was teaching about.
So spiritual blindness and physical blindness. And then...
my question was how far did they take...
Israel. How far did Israel, the Israelites,
take the physical blindness? Would that forbid the person with the disability from participating in temple worship or anything?
No, not blindness, but it did, blindness. No, but there were other things that did keep you out of the sanctuary. Leprosy would be an example. Also, there were very clear things that would keep you from being a priest and even a Levite. There were all of these rules, but all of those were to show that God wants the priest to represent him and to have this appearance of perfection, even though they weren't perfect. But for physical blindness, all that was, and you're talking about man born blind and blaming who did it, and they thought that everything was tit for tat, that and I, by the way, Bob, this is a great question because I meet people that were before Christ or in their wayward years, they were involved in moral sin and they're scared to death to have children because they think if I was immoral, God's going to judge me by giving me a handicapped child, because God does that, I mean, all the way through the Bible, He does that, doesn't He? I mean, that's what we read about, that God just hits everybody that sins. And they're afraid of, they think that physical disabilities are a judgment or a punishment, rather than how the Bible presents it, that physical disabilities are part of God's plan, and it's a reflection of the fall and the curse. So I will come back to that, Bob, because I could go on that all night. But the difference between spiritual blindness, physical disability, and how far did Israel take blindness, they didn't exclude people, but they did for other things, and God told them to. For example, the leper could not come in until he was cleansed, and that all of those were a picture of a spiritual issue. Leprosy was a picture of sin. But I'll come back and answer it until you tell me it's okay. Where'd you go, Bob? Right there. Okay. And I know you. You're the one from Fenton or wherever, and you sold your house after praying all night. I'll never forget that story. You want to hear a good story? They lived in Flint. I mean, Flint? That city is dying. They need to reduce the city limits. And they said, we want to move closer to our grandchildren and close to a church. And if you want to sell our house, and they just put the sign out or something and prayed, and boom, they sold their house in Flint. See, we have not because we ask not. Now, there's others that have been praying for 3 years to sell their house, and the Lord doesn't want you to move. That's why. But the short is, there was no keeping out of the temple because of physical blindness.